Namaste and a very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Sarva Gunn Sampann. I'm pleased to welcome a woman to my show today who values and believes in seeking inner and outer harmony and growth of collective consciousness. Her strengths include seeing the bright side in every situation, a sense of humor, and living in the moment. So please join me in welcoming Sowmya Chakravarthy to the show today. Sowmya, it's great to have you. How are you?
Doing well, Anu. Thank you for having me on this platform. You've done an incredible job pulling in people from different facets, and you have weaved a beautiful tapestry of people's experiences. And I feel incredibly lucky to have you as a friend. And I am hoping you reach 1 million subscribers, and the wealth of knowledge that you will continue to provide the community will become a cornerstone for many people in terms of inspiration and the way they can move through their lives. So thank you.
Thank you, Sowmya. Thank you for those kind words, and thank you for your support and encouragement. I definitely feel that every woman who's sharing her story on this platform, the stories are worth listening to. There is so much we can learn, so many insights that can be gained. Every time I listen to a story, I walk away with feeling great, first of all, and also an elevated level of respect, appreciation, and understanding of the journey of that guest and that woman. So absolutely. Thank you so much for your wishes. And let's get started with your journey. I'm really excited to delve into, understanding a little more about you. And we start with our first segment, which is Bachpan Ke Din. Love to take you back in time and learn about your childhood days. So Bachpan Ke Din for you, Sowmya, take it away.
Absolutely. The first thing that comes to mind is love and laughter. I mean, my parents, as you know, are very simple people, and they made sure myself and my brother, we were nourished and nurtured from the perspective of intelligence, food, spirituality. So I'm very blessed to have a family of really simple people who lived by example. My initial few years of life was in Chennai, and then we moved to Bombay. During the initial years in Chennai, I remember going to my maternal grandparents' house in Salem. My grandpa used to be a lawyer, and extremely boisterous family. They had amazing personality, great sense of humor. My grandmother is the first batch to go to Stella Maris College. And so I think in many regards, they were ahead of their times. She was raised by nuns, so she was like, nothing scares me because I was raised by nuns. Very fluent in English, and also she was extremely humble and inculcated all the traditions at the same time. So she gave me a glimpse into how two seemingly different cultures could just come together. Again, my grandmother also had an amazing sense of humor, great personality. My mom, again, she came from a really affluent family. I remember going to different places in Salem, and that's where my mom is from. And during summer vacation, that's where we would go. My father's side of the family comes from a village, a beautiful, beautiful village, extremely scenic. My paternal grandmother, resilient woman, amazingly spiritual. In fact, she would foretell some stuff that actually came true. If you walked into the house, you would feel this vibration of spiritual energy because that house has been the house of acharyas and paramacharyas. Great saints and sages have lived in that house, and you would feel it when you enter the prayer room. My grandmother was deaf, but she chose to live independently. She had 3 sons and 2 daughters, but decided, no, I will live independently in my house. She raised them so beautifully. She lost her husband at a young age, but the resilient woman that she was, very gracefully and beautifully raised 5 kids. we have a family temple in that village. My father and his brothers are taking care of the village temple. And at some point of time, we would like to also become active participants in that family temple. Those memories are really beautiful. I remember waking up to my dad's Vedic chants and my mother's prayers, the smell of hot rasam and sambar first thing in the morning, and very nourishing environment. And when my brother came along, very true to his name, he was the one who always, as a kid, spread joy. And when he came into our lives, it became a great source of joy for us. And my father had a chance to move to Mumbai because he got promoted, and with promotion came transfer. And so he moved to Mumbai, and Mumbai became a completely different experience for me. So my father worked at the Reserve Bank of India, which now you can equate that to the Federal Reserve of the US. So it's the banks of all banks that oversees the function of the commercial banks, and also is responsible for the betterment of the economy and foreign exchange policies and so on and so forth. And so my father had received a very coveted role of working at the foreign exchange department in Mumbai. And it so happened that when we moved to Mumbai, obviously the language was a big barrier initially, but we noticed that several trucks would roll in to this gated community, and the gated community was only dedicated to Reserve Bank employees. And so in the 80s, there was a great need for young talents to be brought in from different parts of the country to Mumbai, because Mumbai is the commercial headquarters of India. And so young talents were brought in from Nagpur, from Punjab, from Chandigarh, and different parts of the country. And so we all, in essence, started fresh and started at the same time. And while the dads and moms were figuring out the logistics and how do we start afresh a new family in this unknown city, we children were completely excited about this new experience and intrigued by the different languages. And that's when I truly realized what a melting pot our country is, because I would walk into somebody's house and it was like I was walking into a different country, because the food would smell differently. The clothes that the women would wear was completely different from what my mother would wear. And so that became an eye opener for me. And this was when I was in fourth grade. But the good thing was, because we were all in this together and this was a fresh start, it seemed like we became one big family unit. So within the gated community, we became this family, and we did celebrate several occasions together. For example, Ganesh Chaturthi was one of the biggest festivals in Mumbai, and we celebrated that with such gusto. We came together, we would all dress up, and so it became very apparent to me that the country itself runs on this one single, at that time, what I thought was the love that we have for one another became very clear to me. And it came so naturally. And even though we were so different in so many different ways, and yet there is a common thread that runs across each one of us, that became clear to me, but I was not able to articulate it that way back then, but I felt it. I remember we would just sit on this one tank endlessly until midnight even, or even after, because it was a gated community, it was always safe. And although Mumbai is talked to as a hustle and bustle city, we lived in the suburbs, and our balconies would overlook beautiful, luscious mountains. There's one incident that happened wherein, as the trucks were rolling in from different parts of the country, as I mentioned to you, it so happened that the kids would peek into each other's houses. And because people that came from the South were very simple, and they didn't have very opulent furnitures as compared to the people in the North. And so one of the girls asked one of a South Indian friend of ours, "Tumhara truck nahi aaya?" So we were like, "Nahi, truck to aa gaya." Furniture le gaye sab, furniture hai hi nahi kuch. Then we were like, "Nahi, hamara furniture itna hi hai." अच्छा तो हमारे फर्नीचर तो फिट ही नहीं होता, तुम्हारे घर पे है ही नहीं फर्नीचर. So it was the contrast in the culture, even because from compared from south to north, we are seemingly polar opposites, but yet there is this thread that ties us together so beautifully. um my parents were there for us in a way that words cannot express. My dad would play with me chess every day, and he would like to spend time with both my brother and I. And my mom would make sure that she made me understand that academically we have to be very sharp, and being independent as a woman means the financial freedom would also mean equality of women. So she made me realize that financial freedom would mean that we will have that say in the society, the ability to become well equipped to have the financial freedom if you choose to have that. The uh, I also remember my brother at that age used to be such a prankster. He was always pulling a prank on everybody. My grandparents would come from Chennai, and he would teach them all kind of wrong vocabulary, and and they would try to communicate with my neighbors in Hindi, and then it would all be one comic scene as they were trying to learn from my brother. So he always used to be this prankster. I remember going to his open house. So my mother worked at St. Joseph's High School back then, and she couldn't, and I'll come to that in a second. And so she couldn't make time for the open house, and that time I was able to go to his open house. And as I was standing, as I was going in, to his open house, his Hindi teacher, he saw me, and this was when I was out of school and into college. This is when I went to his open house. At that time, the Hindi teacher was so happy to see me, and his name Shukla sir. He said, "Oh, Soumya, तुमको देख के कितना अच्छा लग रहा है. College सब कैसा जा रहा है?" And all the exchange pleasantries. And then he was talking about what I'm pursuing. And then he saw my brother stand behind me, and he goes, shoo, shoo. जैसे कि किसी को. Then I was looking, and then I saw it was my brother standing behind me. Then he goes, "अच्छा, तो why are you here?" Then I said, "Sir, I'm here for my brother's open house because my mom couldn't come." He goes, "अच्छा, तुम्हारा भाई कौन है?" Then I said, "Prasanna." Then he goes, "क्या? ऐसे देवियों के घर में बदमाश कैसे पैदा हो गया?" Then he was so shocked that my brother is Prasanna, and I still remember that story. It's hilarious. But he being a prankster, he had his own fun time, and we all had fun together. So my mom, at the age of, I want to say 40, she realized that the kids have grown up and she would like to pursue teaching. And so what she decided was she wanted to do her B.Ed, Bachelor's in Education. She already had a Bachelor's in Science, but because of her passion to teach, she wanted to go ahead and pursue that. And it almost seemed like the entire family ecosystem came together in pursuit of making that happen. And so my grandpa enrolled her into University of Madras, and she would travel every so often to Chennai. And then in the meantime, my grandmother would come to Mumbai and, to help with cooking and all that. And she would stay at my uncle's house, and my uncle and aunt were so supportive. So the entire family came together to help her achieve that goal. And then she went on to become a really wonderful teacher. And the students absolutely loved her. She had so many accolades. And what she did was she put some money aside for kids that were not able to pay tuition, or she would have kids come over to our house and she would teach them for free. And these students started to pour their love and affection towards her. And she thought that was so fulfilling. She absolutely loved that experience and the journey, and incredibly wonderful woman. Her grit and perseverance to get that done was amazing. She did put in a lot of effort to get her B.Ed, and I'm mighty proud of her for making her dreams come true. Also very thankful for that ecosystem that helped her do that as well, including my dad. I had mentioned to you that my dad worked in the foreign exchange department. And so what he would do is our dinner table conversations used to be about foreign policies, those economic policies of the country, or what's the current affairs. And he had an opportunity to go abroad to learn from different foreign banks as to how they operate. And he would come home and say, okay, in this country, the foreign policies are like this, and this is how they're helping their economy. And so that conversation, that kind of, I think, subconsciously shaped me in becoming more and more interested in the business and commerce area of the country, and the betterment of the country was in its economic success, and how to bring economic success to all stratas of the community within the society. And that was what my father would strive for. I believe that he was a positive catalyst to some of the international policies or foreign exchange policies that are in place, and the booming economy that we have right now, and so many great global trades and investments that happen within the country. I think some of the groundwork and the foundation was laid by the folks, including my father. Then the school days were amazing. What we would do is, as I mentioned, we were one big family. A group of friends would go to Bandstand in Bandra. It's a beach side, or we would go to Juhu. We would just decide to just drive to Juhu, or we would go to the Mount Mary Church in Mumbai. So these were things that we did on the spot, very spontaneously. So there was this one shift that happened. Everybody goes through growing pains. And so at that time, I must have been around 14 or 15, ninth grade maybe. I had this feeling of a certain void in me, and I didn't quite know what it was. But I would tell my mom that at that time I used the word, I remember very clearly using the word a vacuum. I feel that there is this vacuum, but now I feel like the better terminology should have been void. And I felt that because I thought the Indian education system was lacking something. And I couldn't quite pinpoint what it was lacking. And I told my mom that I'm losing interest in studies. And she goes, why, what's going on? I said, I do not know. There's this vacuum. I just cannot put my fingers to it. And she said, okay, we'll need to figure it out. And then she said, not studying or it's not an option. We have to do well in academics, but we will figure this out together. And then she knew that it was coming from a very genuine concern of what this void was, and she wanted to figure out. And so she prayed on it. And in her supreme wisdom and intuition, she introduced me to my spiritual guru, Sri Aurobindo. And she said, I think this is what you need. My intuition says that you're ready. And I do not know who this is, but my intuition is telling me that this is the person that's going to guide you. And the void that I was feeling was, all the studies is great, but what is my true purpose of life? Why am I even here? What am I going to do with this life? And so all these very philosophical thoughts came at a young age of 14. And in retrospect now, I realized that the education system, while the British left, we just simply took their education system and did not modify it. But as the true Indian way of teaching is all about Sanatana Dharma. And so before the British came, we had a Gurukul system where everything was centered around that one divine. Astrology, astronomy, mathematics, everything was revolving around that one divine center. And now with the British education, that is gone. And that's the void that I felt. Now, I'm able to articulate it now in a very specific terms. But back then, all I could tell my mom was there's this vacuum. And then I'm so grateful to her for not foo-fooing my thought. because any mom would have said, okay, this is simply an excuse for not studying. She took this seriously. She took this to heart, and she said, okay, I need to help this child. She's looking for something over and beyond my, how do I put it? My abilities. That she knew that, and she surrendered herself to the divine. She prayed on it, and I'm glad I got introduced to my spiritual guru at such a young age. And so the first book that I was given was called The Life Divine, and that made things crystal clear for me. So there were three big questions that came to my mind back then as a 14-year-old. The first question was, what's the purpose of this creation? What's the purpose of this life? And then from the book called Life Divine, the answer came that the purpose of this life is evolution of consciousness, from light to greater light, truth to falsehood to truth, ignorance to a supreme light, and so on and so forth. The shloka that comes to mind is asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityoma amritam gamaya. So that's the evolution of consciousness, and that's why we are here. And then the next question became, okay, if such is the framework of the creation, then why do you need my collaboration? Because the divine can do everything. So what is my role? And why should I participate? Then the answer came, because the Sanatana Dharma, the way it is designed, is you have free will. It is not going to be imposed upon you. You could choose to join this great adventure of consciousness, or you could choose not to. If you choose to become part of this adventure of consciousness, then your spiritual growth is accelerated. If you don't choose, that's fine. Life will nudge you slowly and bring you to that spot gently over time. If you want to hasten the current situation of the world to a better place, it's all about this evolution of consciousness, and that's what is going to make Earth peaceful. And then the third question that I asked was, and the book gave me that answer was, okay, if participating in this evolution of consciousness is something I need to do for the betterment of humanity, then I want to be part of that. But how can I contribute? And the how piece became life-changing for me. And then the first thing that I did was started to meditate. I didn't know what meditation was, but because my spiritual guru mentioned that one needs to go into oneself and explore what they truly are, I took it to heart and started to meditate at the age of 14. And my parents were extremely helpful in this manner. They did not say, oh, we come from a traditional Vaishnava family, you cannot go to another guru. No, they said, freedom is all yours. You choose what you want to do. We support you in whatever way. And so that's when I started to meditate. And several things became clear to me. Firstly, I felt there was a sense and a purpose for this life. And there was a reason to collaborate with this divine adventure of consciousness. And everything from there on started to revolve around that central idea of evolution of consciousness. And I think within our Indian education system, that needs to be brought back, because we owe it to ourselves as because of the Sanatana Dharma to be able to be that beacon of light. And in order to do that, we need to practice that first. Intellectual growth is great. I know as Indians, we harp on academics, and we put, I would say, way too much weight towards that. But the evolution of the soul is why we have taken this birth. Evolution of consciousness is why we are here. And so to be able to connect with that soul for the purpose that our life is given, I think is the central idea. And then and that kept going on. We would meditate every day at 6 p.m. That was our meditation time. And then it just organically became a sangha. So different people would come to our place at 6 p.m. and we would have a meditation from 6 to 7. And it became this organic collection of people who were interested in meditation. And we would simply quietly meditate together, and then we would disperse. But again, very thankful to my parents for enabling that to happen. The school days were a lot of fun. So the spiritual side and that evolution was happening. And also the fun and frolic was also happening at the same time. But to find the reason for being made things crystal clear to me as to what's the purpose of life. I went on to graduate from my high school, which was a lot of fun. I've made great friends. I'm still in touch with all of them. When I go to India, at Mumbai, we meet up. I then did my college, did my bachelor's in business. Again, it was a great experience. we would have so much fun. I would pick and choose the lectures I wanted to attend, and then we would go to the Juhu Beach, or we would go have fun. So I was, for the most part, an outstanding student. I would always stand outside the campus. So it so happened that one time I attended this economics lecture, and then we were a group of friends. So my group of friends were, they were friends that were Marwadis and Gujaratis, and who were like entrepreneurial spirit. And I absolutely loved their entrepreneurial spirit because, they're, for some reason, they're job creators. They've been taught to become job creators. We are taught to be job seekers. You see, big difference. हम नौकरी करेंगे, लेकिन वो मालिकी करेंगे. That's their attitude. तुम क्या करोगे? तुम नौकरी करोगे? अच्छी तरह पढ़ के नौकरी करो. नहीं, हम मालिकी करेंगे. Huge shift in mentality. And so the education system doesn't foster that, but it's in their DNA. I absolutely love my Gujarati and Marwadi friends. And I think so many great things have come out of that community. They have countless companies in India I can name that have been stood up, and they've become job creators and backbone of the Indian economy in a lot of ways. And so it so happened that one time there was this economic professor, and then I was sitting in the back bench with all these friends of mine. And again, I wouldn't say I was a great role model. I was all about fun. I would study well, but at the same time, I couldn't hang out with the nerds. I needed my fun. And so I would hang out with a bunch of people that were fun. And then, and again, we created, I think we were a little disturbing to the class. And so the professor called me out and he said, okay, looks like the backbenchers are creating quite a ruckus there. Then he called me out and he said, I want you to come on to the podium and talk about seasonality. This was economics professor. And then I said, okay, sure. Let me read through it. And then I read through it. And then I gave a 15 minutes lecture on seasonality within, in economics. And then he was stunned. And then he looks at me. He goes, what are you doing with this bunch of jokers? Why are you're an intelligent girl. I said, oh, thank you, sir. Then he goes, but why are you with them? You should not be hanging out with those people. You should be hanging out with these people in the front who are inclined in academics. I said, those guys will go to become job creators. We will be job seekers. Just watch. They look like they are here to have fun, but they will be job creators. And lo and behold, they became. So fast forward a few years, one of my friends now owns a Rolex watch company, a showroom. The other one has a beautiful crude oil business. One other friend has a marble business wherein he makes temples out of the marble stones, and very successful in Ahmedabad, things of that nature. So my point is, education will only take you so far. We have to foster ourselves and our kids to think from the entrepreneurial spirit as well. And academics is great, but one should not turn into an intellectual snob. That becomes a barrier.
Yeah. Great points, Sowmya. I really, appreciate you shedding some light on that. I think, for most part, that's how education system has been in India, and that has really influenced and shaped a lot of the Indian psyche, which, plays out in the parents harping on the need for grades and, academic success. And this whole idea of, you need to have a job and you need to have job security, and that's what life is about. So that for you to get exposed to that kind of a wide variety of influences, whether it was from your family, the intellectual, the spiritual, again, in your school, the various influences of working, being with kids who were entrepreneurs, and again, having all the fun while traversing these spaces, I'm sure was very, very enriching. So thank you so much for sharing those wonderful experiences. I can see where you get your sense of humor and, your spiritual bent of mind. So that's great to know. Awesome. We'll move on to our next segment here, which is Ye Kahan Aa Gaye Hum. And here I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about which college you went to. I know you alluded to that. Which college did you go to? What course did you pursue? And now we journey into your adulthood. So you finished the college. What happened after that? So was there marriage? Was there in any work experience that you gained? Relocation, perhaps? So all of that information in Ye Kahan Aa Gaye Hum.
I wanted to mention talked about the spiritual side. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, would always talk about my great uncle, who is Chakravarthi Rajagopalachari. He was the last Governor General of Free India. He also wrote this beautiful poem called Kurayundrumillai. The rendition was given by M.S. Subbulakshmi, a very spiritual man. She always put that sense of patriotism in us. And if you look at the freedom fighters of those age, they were all spiritual. You could take C.V. Rajagopalachari, Bharatiyar, or Lokmanya Tilak, Maulana Azad. I mean, all these people that were great freedom fighters, on my guru, Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, they were great freedom fighters, but also they were very spiritual. And so being a nationalist is not a bad thing. Being a nationalist just means that you just love your country. And that spiritual side needs to be fostered for the sake of the betterment of the country. So I felt very strongly about that. And so to have I had an example that was set for me, and my beautiful grandmother told us so many stories of C.V. Rajagopalachari's. His full name is Chakravarthi Rajagopalachari, and his work and his contributions. So I'm a great patriot at heart because of that. Thanks to my grandmother. Sorry to digress. So I'll come to the topic of studies. And so I finished my bachelor's as well as master's from University of Mumbai. Did my bachelor's in business and also MBA after that. When I was, during my bachelor's, like I said, I had such a diverse set of friends from different backgrounds that I did not pigeonhole myself into thinking studies was it. When I did my master's in business, right after that, that again was a great exposure because I had so many internships. One of them was in World Trade Center in Colaba. The other one was in an Indian Import-Export Chamber of Commerce. One was an Indian Arab Chamber of Commerce. And so there were so many beautiful internship experiences I got through my master's in business. And so right after I got out of my master's, I got my first job at the Z group of companies, the ZTV group. But they had one other, so there was this ZTV is the one that people know, but then they also have something called SL World, which is more like the Six Flag we have here. So that was the other set of companies they owned. And there was one other company that was into package design and packaging for companies like Unilever, Colgate, and so on and so forth. And so I was right out of graduate school, I worked for the group of companies, the packaging company that did package designs for Unilever and so on and so forth. So through that, I was in the international department. And I would meet with people from Unilever Egypt or Unilever Mauritius, different parts of the world. And so I would communicate with them. And At that time, the visionary that stood up the company was Subhash Chandra, the Z group of companies, and we ended up having the highest export earnings, and so I was awarded by the Z group of companies chairman, Mr. Subhash Chandra, for the achievement of getting the highest export earnings for the company. And so I learned what independence was, and I embraced that financial independence. I remember the first salary went to my guru's ashram, and I feel very grateful that I had the wisdom to do that. I reflect upon myself. I'm like, okay, not bad, not bad. You did that, in hindsight, it feels like, oh, you did that. Oh, that's wise of you. So every once in a while, I reflect back to say, okay, this was a wise move. That was a wise move. And so I think this was really something very near and dear to my heart, my guru's ashram. And so I'm glad my first salary went to him. Back then it was like 6,000 or 8,000 rupees, maybe. That was the first salary. My experience with the company was wonderful, but my father said, "Okay, it's time to get married," and so that's when the whole matrimonial process started, and then came Ravi into my life, and we had to move to the U.S. I moved to the U.S. 1st April 2001. So on April Fool's Day, I don't know whether the joke was on me, but that's when we moved. When we first came, so some of Ravi's friends had come to receive us at the airport. I found that quite odd because now I'm a little disoriented because of where the steering wheel is. Then I realized, okay, everything has to be opposite of what it is in UK, maybe. So maybe that's why. But even the switches were flipped. But in any case, so as we came to the highway, I saw not a single person on the highway. Then I thought there was some kind of a curfew or something of that sort because, in Mumbai, you cannot take 2 steps without bumping into 10 people. And so the crowd, and then this was such a stark contrast to that. I was thinking, I was really confused as to why there was not a single person on the highway, and and that's when our friends mentioned, no, highway is strictly for cars. You cannot walk on the highway like we do in India. But the first thing that I noticed right away was the infrastructure. I mean, hats off to the founding fathers of this country for putting together not only the constitution, which is rock solid constitution, but also the visionaries that they were to put together the infrastructure for the country that would serve the growing population. So they were futuristic in their approach. Few things that really amused me was the coil on the gas in the stove that looked like the tortoise coil that you would get in India to drive away the mosquitoes. So that was very intriguing to see. And then, it's all about timing, because if you go to boil your milk, you cannot just switch it off because the heat keeps going on and on. And so, that was a change of gas stove to an electric stove. The other thing that absolutely shocked me was the gigantic size of the milk cans, like a gallon. Then I was telling ये पूरी बिरादरी के लिए दूध लेकर आया तुम कर इतना बड़ा दूध का बॉटल काम क्या करेंगे. Then he's like, इससे कम नहीं मिलता है, अभी कम चला लो कैसे भी. Then I'm like, okay, this is like everything was super size. Like if you go to even a coffee shop, the gigantic cup of coffee you get. So the super size was quite a interesting, perspective. When you come from a different country, you see everything is larger than life, even your coffee cups. The experience here after coming to US was definitely a bit of trying to get my bearings right. I missed my family, definitely. Missed my cousins, and they were all in India. I have a great set of cousins in Chennai, and now they're all scattered all over the globe. But so I did miss my family. So that was happening, and at the same time, I was trying to find my own self in the process.
So did you come to which part of the country did you come to when you landed, and where do you stay? Okay.
Cleveland. Yeah. So we got an apartment that was in Broadview Heights. Ravi already had an apartment in Broadview Heights. He uh, uh, the first thing that he told me was, know that you will not see people. So you will have to make friends with crows if you see them. So initially it was going to be lonely. And, Ravi, being an introvert, he didn't have many friends. And so he had a small group of friends that he would hang out with. And me being the social butterfly, I was like, okay, let me seek some friends of my own. And so I would go on these long walks. As I was walking, I made friends with this one elderly Scottish lady, and I was just talking to her, and then became friends. So her name is Martha, but she's no more, but happened to be my first friend. And then I went on to set the apartment right. Because Ravi, when he was a bachelor, he really didn't he wasn't that worried about the kitchen. He never entered the kitchen with the fridge and the stove. And I was not happy with the standards. So I would go to the maintenance people and I would be like, no, we need this change, we need that change, so on and so forth. And then slowly we got things repaired and stuff. But the first few months were, I would say, challenging in many ways and also exciting. So it was mixed emotions. It so happened that the AC unit conked off. And so we needed someone to come and fix it. And so I rang up the maintenance office and said, because peak of summer can get really hot, and said we need someone to fix it. And so we were on the first floor, and our patio door would just open up to this the front lawn. And so the guy came, and I immediately sensed that something was not right. And again, was it because of my meditation? I don't know, but and also some women have the strong sixth sense, and you could even call it sixth sense. Then that was my time to sit during my meditation, anyways, because I would meditate regularly. So I sat in my meditation, and I said, okay, this is the AC unit that needs to be fixed, and then I was finished up with my meditation, and I saw that this and at that time, I invoked the protection of the divine because I knew there was something not right. But he did his job. He left, and then the next day, the maintenance guy comes and asks me, the manager. He asks me, "I hope everything is all right." And I said, "Yeah, everything is fine with the AC unit." Then he goes, "Oh, by the way, we had to fire that technician because he was under substance abuse." So I was like, that was such a shock to me. But luckily, my intuition was like, keep your patio door open, keep the door open, and even just be vigilant, even if you're meditating. So these are some of the challenges that one has to encounter, and we just do it with grace and invoke the divine protection wherever we are, and knowing that there will always there's a higher power looking over you.
Sure. So what did you what other experience did you have in terms of adjustment, and also what were you thinking in terms of continuing with your job or education? So because that becomes very critical. You come here and you try to settle in, but alongside you're also thinking about what am I going to do next? So what was that journey like?
Yeah. So being in India and having that independence and the job, it made me realize that I have to be independent. And Ravi was not forcing me or anything like that, but that became an integral part of me to become independent and make something out of myself. So it was difficult because now I have to start from scratch again. And while University of Mumbai is a accredited university, and then when you transfer those credentials into the US one, it does come up as an MBA and the grade point average of 3.7 or whatever the case may be. So the education was regarded as a education from accredited university. But what became challenging was not having work experience here. And so when I would apply for jobs, then and because my background is business and as part of MBA, I had no desire to go into IT because there's something called the Swadharma and Swabhava, And it has to be this was my thinking back then, and I have to follow what my passion is. And because I've already been in that area, I felt like that's the area I need to pursue. And so there were one of two options on the table for me. One was to go ahead and do another MBA, or I could take up any small job that came my way. And by then, Ravi got his green card. 6 months into the marriage, Ravi got his green card. And so I got my employment authorization to work. And so I remember having this conversation with Ravi. He said, why don't you go ahead and do your MBA if people are asking for work experience? Then I told him that I've got my MBA from one of the best places, and I've already got work experience from an international perspective. I mean, I was with Colgate and Unilever, New Jersey and Mauritius and Egypt and so on and so forth. I said, I don't see myself getting anything extra out of the MBA here. I think I want to connect with the locals. I want to become part of the culture. I want to become acculturated. And this, I think, comes from being in Bombay. You are so plastic that you are willing to learn and assimilate different parts of the culture. And so I got turned down multiple jobs. Many of them said I was overqualified, and because I would go apply for the customer service, call centers even. I don't care. I'm like, I just needed a break, and there was no shame in starting small. And then finally, then Ravi said, okay, I support whatever you want to do. And so I started, and I would go through the newspapers back then, and there was just one job that was available that was in North Royalton back then, and the shop is shut now, but they were selling children's storybooks, and the job requirement was that you would go stand in the grocery stores like Giant Eagle or Kmart at that time, Walmart, and you would go stand in the grocery stores and simply approach the people coming in with your books, your storybooks, and parts of the proceeds went to some children's NGO. Then I told Ravi that it's not about the money, it's about the experience. And I don't even know how much commission I got, but it was abysmal. The idea was to get connected with the people. So I remember, so group of people would go to different parts of the stores. So Ravi would drop me at the main, their headquarters in North Royalton. And then from there on, our site managers would take us to different stores because they had to seek approval from the Giant Eagle store managers and whatnot. So they managed those logistics. And then we were, very similar to the Salvation Army. We would set up a booth and we would go sell books and to anybody and everybody that came. And at that time, I started to make instant connection with people. I would go just walk up to them, talk to them, and discuss. And the ones that had kids, I would be overjoyed. And at that time, I didn't know that you have, I didn't have any inhibitions. I would go give the child a high five, or I was always mesmerized by the beauty and the innocence in children. And so it came very naturally to me. And then when I sold the books, I never sold the books. And in retrospect, now I'm thinking, I'm glad it came naturally to me. I would ask the child what they like the best from a bonding perspective. They would say cuddling with my mommy at night in bed, and then I would bring up this the mom. Oh, looks like you can build some great memories by reading these children's books. And so it's not about selling the book, it's about selling the experience that the product brings, and that's the way you connect with people. And so I did fine in the job. I barely lasted for 3 months, if that. But I made some great friends. There's a really funny story. So I met a person from Hawaii. I met a person from that moved in from, I think now, which is Ukraine. His name, I don't know, it's Sergey, I think. And then there is a Greek girl by the name Maria that I met. I'm not in touch with any of them, but the names come to my mind as though it was yesterday. And I learned so much about the Greek culture and how we are so similar in culture. And so the fact that I was easily able to talk to them and interact with them and move along with them, And they also knew that I'm new to the country, and so they gave me that space to learn. So I'm appreciative of that. So I made friends with this one um, girl by the name Chela. I've lost touch over the years, and she's from the African American community. We both became best friends. And then she left her job, similar to me, and started to pursue something else altogether. But we stayed in touch, and she came to visit me. Um, she came to visit me at the Broadway Heights apartment, and I told Ravi, my best friend from work is coming, and I need to cook some really wonderful dishes. And he goes, okay. So she came over, and we started to have some good conversations, and then we got stuck. And there was in our conversations, I brought up something like, oh, I left this job a fortnight ago. And then she goes, wait, what did you say? Oh, I said, I left this job a fortnight ago. And then I said, Ravi, I think I need your help. Then he comes over at the dining table, and he goes, what happened? I said, how do I what's happening here? And then so Chela tells him, can you repeat the, Sowmya? Then I told her I left my job a fortnight ago. And then Ravi said, oh, she left her job 2 weeks ago. Then she goes, oh, okay. Then I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was not a common terminology here. And then he goes about his work, and then Chela goes, oh, I have a big party tonight. I'm like, oh, okay. Then she takes out a dress, and she goes, I'm gonna wear this bad boy today. Then I was like, कहाँ आ गया bad boy? कौन है तेरे को लफंगा जो तेरे को परेशान कर रहा है? Then I said, okay. Then I call Ravi again. I said, I need some translation here. It looks like then Ravi comes over. He goes, what happened? Then I said, she's talking about some bad boy. I'm really concerned. What's happening here? Then he goes, oh, that's a slang you use for a dress which is really sharp. So what she's trying to say is she's going to wear a sharp looking dress today. Oh, then I said, oh, okay, isko bad boy bolte hain. Then, things of that nature. Then Ravi after she left, Ravi was like, kahan se tum best friends ho gaye? Ek dusre ka bhasha samajh mein nahi aata. I needed to be your translator. But in any case, I think that was funny that every 2 sentences we had to call him because of a vernacular that she didn't understand, or some slang that I didn't understand. But this was part of the growing experience. Right after that, I joined American Express I was into investment banking for about a year there. It was a commission-based business, but role. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I helped people through their investment journey, several of which was pretty amazing. I had to write a few board exams, like the Securities Exchange board exams. There's certain exams you have to pass in order to make some investment choices for your clients. And so I did that, and that experience was really, really amazing. But I couldn't work these long hours. By the time I got home, it was around 11:30, 12 at night. And so that, although I thoroughly enjoyed myself, I didn't want it to take a toll on my health. And so I decided to move on. And then got a job opportunity at American Greetings. I was there for a year. I learned a lot there as well. This time on the creative side of the business, there are several celebrations like Mother's Day, Father's Day, and what kind of creative designs do we need to bring forth? And so that was a unique experience as well. And then our daughter Shreya came along. Then I took a break. Then after a few months break, I joined back into the workforce. And this time I worked for a company called Nielsen. They're all about market research. And how I had mentioned to you about all the upbringing and how I would play chess with my dad. Chess is all about strategies and thinking long term, and also his the inspiration that I see from him in terms of the economics, and so those things I think subconsciously molded me. And when I joined Nielsen Research, the job was on site at Nestlé, so I was their research and business consultant for Nestlé on site here in the Cleveland area, and so all that upbringing and the shaping kind of culminated into this a perfect match of the Swadharma and Swabhava. And this, they bring it up in Bhagavad Gita all the time, but I feel like it's one of the best ways to seek a job is to know about your inner self, and then the job becomes more of a enjoyment rather than just something you do to collect your paycheck.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful, because I think what really worked in your favor was that you didn't have to go and get additional education. You already had the talent, like you mentioned. You were able to relate your previous experiences in customer service, in marketing, in research, in client service, and find those opportunities where you could bring those skills to fore. But also each experience really shaped you and prepared you in a way that you were getting better and better with your skills and with your knowledge and with your abilities for the next role. So that helps us segue into our next segment, which is Kaam Ki Baat. And here I want to hear about what is it that you do on a day-to-day basis? What kind of a role are you into? And how do you bring your Swadharma and make an impact, not just to your organization, not just on your organization, but also to your clients? So this is all about your work. Kaam Ki Baat.
Mm-hmm. So I work for the #1 food and beverage company in the world, Nestlé, and it's a Swiss multinational company with its headquarters in Vevey, Switzerland. And my role in the company is strategy category leadership. And so what we do in that role is it can be divided into 3 big pillars. The first pillar is all about looking into the future and making a broad strategy framework, looking at the macro trends, macroeconomic trends. Say, for example, right now, we can take the example of inflation. And so the consumer is pinched and they're trying to do various different types of wallet management. And so the strategy will be around how do we serve these consumers that are feeling the pinch in their wallets, and how can we make products that will better suit the current macroeconomic trends. So that's one of the examples. The other example is, I'm right now at the headquarters. And so these strategies and thought leadership that we bring needs to be communicated to the people in the field, the grassroots folks that are in the field. And so in a given month, I probably do 20 to 30 presentations to an audience of 300 plus. And so, the idea here is to communicate the strategies or the thought leadership in terms of pricing or promotion or new products or innovation or consumer behavior, whatever the case may be, in a very succinct, clear manner. But this is where I think storytelling becomes important. You can build several PowerPoints and endless PowerPoints, but end of the day, if you cannot keep the audience captive, then you lose them, and then you lose the strategy as well. So to date, I make sure that I rehearse before I present. It could be, because you're presenting to 200, 300 audience. And so you need to be crystal clear in your communication. There needs to be a storytelling element, and there needs to be a connection, and there needs to be humor, because without humor, I don't think, life will be so dry. And so, I do bring that humor element to all my presentations as and when possible. I don't force it, but if it flows, then it flows. So there's one person that made a comment as I was presenting. He mentioned, "Wow, you're such a wonderful teacher. You made something so complex and make it look so simple." And I right away told him that my father is in academia right now. He's retired. He's retired from the bank, but he's a professor at IIM and also some big MBA colleges. But I think, and also my mom used to be a teacher. And so I think somewhere in my genes that is there. And so I think I have to give a lot of that credit to my parents who lived by example and created that shaped my personality. And so the first pillar, like I said, is to look at the macro trends and be a little bit more futuristic. The second one is to, as you create those strategies, you communicate it to the field and in a very simple, succinct way that will connect with them. And the third one, and this I would say is one of the most important piece, is to make sure that we create just not a just products, but how do we connect with our consumers? End of the day, it's all about consumer centricity, and to make sure that we are listening to them, we are making sure their needs are met, and that connection through communication is extremely important. And so we always strive to be very consumer centric in the approach. So those are the three big, I think, broad strokes, if you will, for the job.
That's excellent. So what would some qualifications be in that role? Like if somebody's finished their undergrad in business, perhaps with a major in finance or marketing, what kind of opportunities exist for them within your occupation? So you are a product category manager, right? You're a leader in that space. How would somebody approach that space if they're interested? If that's something that sounds interesting to someone, what would they need to do?
Absolutely. I would say, firstly, take up any job shadowing opportunities. You could reach out to the HR, and it need not be, for money. You could reach out to the HR and ask them if there's job shadowing opportunities if you're interested, because there's expectations versus reality. It may seem like it's an exciting job, it's all exciting, but at the end of the day, you're still into statistics, you're still crunching numbers, you're trying to make meaningful story out of piles and piles of data. And so, so the job that I have, it requires a little bit of a lot of business analytics, but also a bend towards business, as to what does the consumer want, and what kind of products can we offer them to bridge that gap. A good start would be to start to job shadow or meet with people that are in similar fields and build contacts, networks initially. And also the second, I would recommend, if they've already finished their bachelor's, to start looking for those internships, because there are certain companies that are willing to hire bachelors in business. And also many college campuses, they have different booths set up with different companies. So colleges themselves have great partnerships with these companies. And so to make sure that any of these exhibitions that come to their campuses to avail of that opportunity, because it's all about getting that small break first, and then you build on it. I think those would be some of the suggestions.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like the job shadowing part. If you want to see if you're cut out for a role, reach out to a company. They may or may not have internship opportunities, but it never hurts to reach out and ask for an opportunity to volunteer or to job shadow, because there's no better way of learning than those small opportunities where you get a taste for what the company does, and if you like the role, and also for the company to test drive and see if you're a good fit in the long run or even in the short run. So awesome! Thanks for sharing that wonderful information, Sowmya. What do you do to stay current in your role? What kind of trainings and certifications and upskilling opportunities do you have, especially now with AI being so hot? How is your role evolving?
Well, yes, AI is something we are trying to incorporate. While I cannot speak too much of it, but there's always an opportunity to upskill. This is a new space to every one of us, and so it's something that is inevitable to learn. But as humans, we have to use it responsibly. I recently, in 2018, enrolled myself into MBA at Texas A&M. I did that because I wanted to update myself. Although I had an MBA already, I said, okay, it was time, because the digital marketing space has grown in leaps and bounds. And so let's keep ourselves updated. It was not an easy task, because doing an MBA back then and doing it several years later, big difference, and so, but I was able to finish it. And that was one way of upskilling myself, was to keeping myself fresh and current in my intellectual pursuits. And also within Nestlé, we have something called Nestlé University, wherein we have these courses. It could be a storytelling or presentation skills, or it could be something about finance. So some of them are mandatory and some of them are not. But I try to carve some time to make sure I upskill myself, block some time on a Friday afternoon to take some of those courses. Those are really valuable courses. And also LinkedIn offers some free courses as well. And so if anything, any of these, there's so many free courses that are available that, even outside of the company that we could avail of.
Yeah. No, great advice. Really solid. I think anybody who's interested, who's got a background in business and is looking at the food industry, companies like Nestlé, which are world leaders in, the products that we use in our everyday life. And for you to be in a role where you get to influence, the strategy and what kind of products make it to those aisles where we do our grocery shopping is fascinating. So really impressive. And thank you so much once again for sharing all that great information. We now move on to our next segment in this show, which is your X Factor. And from the looks of it, there's a lot of spirituality, in the background, in the way you have grown up and what was fostered very early on in your life by your mother. But I would love to know, what do you consider to be your X Factor?
I do want to mention one thing on the career piece.
Yeah.
As you asked about what's the how you would go pursuing stuff. I mentioned about starting small, and then over time you get there and you get to the next level, and then you may not get recognition initially, and there is no instant gratification. So I just want to to level set that expectations for the youngsters who want instant gratification. Right out of college, there's this zeal, this enthusiasm, but it'll come in due time. I mentioned to you about me receiving an award by Subhash Chandra at ZTV, and then the accolades came at Nestlé as well. I received an award at Nestlé as well, but sometimes within the journey, you may not always get recognized, which is okay, but it may come when it's least expected. And so if we keep at it and putting our best foot forward, the recognition will come. So let that not be the focus, and let the focus be towards upskilling oneself and taking joy in the work. That'll show towards, definitely at some point it'll surface. Yeah. So the X factor, I think I can break it down into 3 different things. The first one would be connecting with the soul, would be the meditation. So over the last 20 plus years, I run a very modest little meditation center at my house. So every Sunday, it's a revolving door. People come and go. I have a small dedicated space. So I've taught several people how to meditate, and I've lost count now. I do not want to use I too much here, because it is, the souls are brought in for a certain reason and then they leave. They gain the knowledge and how to connect, and so it's all, I think, it's a divine framework. Somehow there's this yearning in the soul to learn, and then somehow I'm brought in, I teach, and then we part ways. This has happened several times. In fact, one of our best friends, I won't take the name, but apparently, and this is what she told me, that there was a strong yearning within her to learn how to meditate. And she's a great devotee of Sri Satya Sai. And it seems the prayer came from her, teach me how to meditate. And apparently I texted her the next day, I want to teach meditation. So things like that has happened to me many a times, wherein you are the right time for the right person who is willing to learn. So I do that. And the second thing is there's this center within South Carolina called the LaGrasse Center of Integral Studies. And so I try to volunteer my time being a freelance writer for the newsletters, talking about different spiritual topics. Also, I was involved with some of their web design as well. And so I try to do that in my spare time. And thirdly, I am this place in Pondicherry where my guru's ashram is. There's a center called Auroville. My spiritual master's vision was for that to be a utopian society where it's all about evolution of consciousness and the shift within the collective consciousness. So there's a saying wherein it goes like this: if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And so many people have gone fast. So their spiritual realizations have been fast. But we need to bring about a change in collective consciousness. And so his vision is to bring the shift in the collective consciousness. And he created this utopian spiritual society under the guidance of Mother Mira, who is the French lady who came to take Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga, the Purna yoga, forward. In his yoga, it is not about just about spiritual growth through the mind, which is the Jnana Yoga. It takes Jnana Yoga. It takes Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of devotion, and also the Karma Yoga, wherein you remember and offer everything you do. The smallest chore, like washing dishes, you offer and you do that. So throughout the day, you are doing some kind of yoga, and you're always in this divine presence. So in doing so, there's always this equilibrium that is balanced, and you feel it. In the midst of total chaos, you're able to be that calm, strong lighthouse of energy. And that, I think, is something very critical to teach the younger generation. They can succumb to pressure. There's so many cases of depression and anxiety in the little kids. We owe it to the future generation to teach them how to become strong individuals by exploring their inner self. So I want to share a small story here. There was this one gentleman, and I really don't know how he came into our life, but randomly came and he started to talk to me, and he said, and I don't know this guy at all. He's a gentleman, maybe in his mid-50s, in Tamil Nadu. He goes, oh, he looks at me and he goes, oh, Vanakamma, which is, he's just simply greeting me. Then I said, Vanakamaya. I just reciprocate to his greetings. And he said, he told me that, oh, your spiritual guru is supreme guru who is looking into the yoga of the future. I said, yes, that is true, because my guru is into bringing preparing the world for the Kalki consciousness. And so I said, that's true. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I don't know how he knows that, but okay. And then he states as a matter of fact, he goes, you need to teach the world the new age yoga. He said, then he corrected himself. He goes, no, you shall teach the world his new age yoga. Then I said, okay. And then he walks away, and I've never seen him again. And so what I would like to do is utilize your platform to teach people how to connect with their highest self, and also how to connect with their inmost self. That way they can tap into that reservoir of the Sat Chit and Ananda that is in them. And this is, I know, a big miss within our education system. We need to bring it back, because that will become critical in the evolution of the consciousness, which is the very reason of our existence. But I think I would like to take the opportunity to show your viewers this nugget of knowledge to help them with their own seeking of the divine, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, please go for it.
So I want to preface that whatever has been taught to me is directly coming from a guru, and so I don't want to take any credit for it. The first thing I want to mention is, within our own self, there is in the little babies, there's a soft spot over here, and then that soft spot closes. Right above that is what we call as the Sahasra Chakra. But even above that is something called the Jiva, the Jivatma. I'm putting it in very, very easy terms for people to understand. And that's the self, the highest self in us. And the self in me is the same self in you. So that's the universal self, or the Jivatma, as we call it. And then, there's 7 chakras in the body. And also there's different koshas, or different bodies. We are just not the one body. We have the physical sheath, there's a vital sheath, which is the pranic sheath, and then there's a mental body, which is the manomaya kosha. So when we have sometimes the conflicts within ourselves, because we are just not the one physical body that we see, we have the other two bodies, which is the annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, the other three bodies, the mental, vital, and the physical. And so the harmony between the three is important. There's also higher planes, which is called the Vijnanamaya Kosha, that comes at a later point of spiritual evolution. But these are the three bodies at the lower hemisphere, if you will. And so the idea is to tap into your highest self, which is the jiva right above you, and draw that energy into you. And in a one full stream, pouring down from top of the head to the bottom of your toes. And I know people say they want to go on pilgrimage and to different places, but the divine is right here, right now, within us, around us. Aham Brahmasmi or Sarvam Kaluidam Brahman. These are all just not terms that came about. There's the most potent truths to these Sanskrit terms. And so once we know that there is this divine, then the question becomes, okay, how can I draw this reservoir of this light that is right here into me? And then the idea is to be in the attitude of self-giving. So you become like this beautiful flower that looks out to the sun to bloom. Many a times when people go to the temple or pray, it's always an act of asking, give me this and give me that. But when you tell the divine, oh, I want to give myself, and then it's almost like the stars are aligned to do just that. So to be able to give oneself is one of the, I think, the supreme gift we can give to the divine is to give oneself. And when we keep our vessels empty and clean, the light, we keep seeking the light in the meditation. We invite the light into the head, the neck, the chest, and then throughout the body, right up to your toes. You need not remember or know the chakras, but you will start to feel the vibrations in the chakras. And so it was possibly good to learn about the 7 chakras just for your knowledge sake, but you will realize that those are the antennas, if you will, of receptors of that energy, and then they disseminate kind of spread that energy to the other parts of the body. And that's divine above right here. There's another divine which is in the heart center, which is the personal divine, which is called the Antar Atman, or in Sanskrit it's also called Chaitya Purusha. It's also known as Angushta Matra Purusha, which is very unique to you. It's as unique as your retina or your thumbprint. And that is as the best analogy I can give there is the divine has sowed the seed in the heart and wants to manifest a portion of himself through us. And that's the unique personality that you and I and the 7 billion population is meant to bring, is that one unique aspect of the divine. He's trying to manifest that through you, through me, and through the rest of the 7 billion. But how do we enable that? Again, it is as we go deep within, as we meditate, you start to see that starts to become more and more clear. It starts to unravel. The veil is torn, and there is clarity. But the reason I bring this up is because many of us, as we pray, sometimes don't know that we have it within us. This center above us, which is the Jivatman, and also within us, which is the Antaratman, the universal divine that's the same within you and me, and the personal divine that is very unique to me and you. And as we start to embark on this journey of spiritual consciousness, we start to become one with the divine, and then we start to become an instrument. And because that is the central idea of our existence, that is the very purpose of this life, how do we make sure that we create an ecosystem that enables that? So my request to the folks that are watching this is to become the example, carve out some time for your kids, yourself, to sit together and start to explore your inner self, because we are pregnant with that universe, that energy of the divine that's just wanting to manifest.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You are somebody that practices this very, very deeply. And for you to share this gift of spirituality is perhaps one of the greatest gifts that you can actually give to another being. And it's a blessing to have that. So thank you so much once again for shedding some light on that with our audience. And I'll probably put a link in the description if you have any information that folks can look up, perhaps a website or some place where they can go find more information on the meditation techniques. And if they would like to connect with you, maybe a link to your social media page, perhaps. So we'll talk about that. But now we move on to our final segment, which is your self-care. Would love to know, what do you do? Do you have any particular routine that you follow on a daily basis? Is there something that you do frequently to take care of yourself? We know you do that spiritually, but physically, mentally, and emotionally, what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Mm-hmm. So a few things that I do. First thing, when I wake up in the morning, the first 30 minutes are really sacred. Starts with just few pranayamas and some Surya Namaskars to get the energy in the body going, and then a few minutes of meditation. So I carve out like 30 minutes for that. And then that kind of puts me in the poise of, of the right attitude for the day. That way I can embrace the day. And then I do some weights as well. Recently, I've started to, as we all need, I think, at some point of time, start to think about how we can manage our muscle mass. So I have started to take up this strength training. I do that twice or thrice a week. And also in terms of nutrition, I have come to realize that chia seed is very versatile. So just soaking chia seeds in the water the previous night and drinking that the next day, I just pour it into a big water bottle and then sip through the day. It kind of helps me manage my food cravings. I do love food, but at the same time, these are some of the tricks I have to incorporate to not overdo my eating. The chia seed is one of the most versatile things that I've discovered lately. And also I have this one protein shake. I would recommend this one lady by the name Nisa Homey, Nisahomey, I think. She's really, she gives out some great recipes. I follow her every once in a while. So this recipe is from her. So you take a handful of almonds, a spoon of chia seed, spoon of flax seed, a spoon of hemp seed, some dates, and a stick of cinnamon, and then put it in a blender. It nourishes you instantaneously. And so this is a protein shake. If I take that right before my workout or even after my workout, sometimes you're strapped for time and you're hungry, just put it in a blender and it takes less than 5 minutes. And so this protein shake is really tasty, as well as it provides you with some nutritious content as well. And then what else? I do like to journal. And so I reflect on the day. And because in this yoga of spiritual consciousness, you reflect on the things that you do every day. And then there may be things that you have seen a progress, or maybe there's a regression, whatever the case may be, but to be self-aware, to identify that and to be able to immediately course correct. And so I think journaling is a very important part of the day-to-day. If I would actually call it a lifestyle, even just to make sure it becomes part of your lifestyle. But it has helped me in making sure that I keep myself under check and accountable.
Wonderful. No, that's great. Wonderful advice, how you're paying attention to your physical self, strength training, taking care of your nutrition, and of course, everything you're doing for spirituality. That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Sowmya, for sharing that information. Also, before we wrap up, any final parting words for our audience from you?
The final words for the audience would be to embark on this journey of the adventure of consciousness. It's here, it's now, it is within us, it is around us. And that is the very purpose of life. And so let's make the most of the life that is given to us. Let it start with the self-exploration, which will ultimately lead to self-realization. But we have to begin somewhere. And so let's begin the process with a sincere attitude and a sense of gratitude. And we will see a world where the collective consciousness has shifted and we are all beaming lights of consciousness, where each one of us becomes that beacon of light. And when we all collectively, if one person holds the torch, it's just one person. But if the 7 billion of us hold the torch of that divine light, there is no room for falsehood. There's only light and greater light. So with that, I'd say namaste.
Thank you so much, Sowmya. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing some really useful information, not just about your career, about your life journey, but also something very deep and very meaningful in the way you've talked about spirituality and the need to really elevate the collective consciousness through the daily practices that we embark on. I cannot be more grateful to you. Thank you so much once again for coming on the show, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Anna. Namaste.